Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Susie. I am your host and I am an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. Today's episode is for those of you who are feeling the calling to becoming an Akashic Records practitioner, whether you are feeling the calling to become an Akashic Records reader or to do deep energy work in the Akashic Records called Akashic Clearing. This is very much a calling that some people will have, some people won't. Lots of people who come to do my level 1 training, which is learning how to read and heal and clear in your own Akashic Records, solely want to do work with the Akashic Records for themselves and for their own spiritual development, and that is completely okay. However, a portion of people who study that level 1 course also have this deeper desire, this inner calling to become an Akashic Records practitioner. And I wanted to use this opportunity to really go into what I cover in my level 2 class, because my next level 2 class is coming up in October. And I wanted to use this episode today to be able to give you a little bit more information that perhaps you'll see on my social media or on my website, so you can really feel into whether or not this class is for you if you're feeling that calling. Of course, there are lots of Akashic Records teachers out there, and I just want to let you know what my course includes, so that if you feel like you resonate with the way that I teach, the way that I share things, that you get more of an idea of what you would be for the 12 weeks. Before I get into that, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, do people need to have studied level 1 before moving on to level 2? And the answer is yes. Now, you do not have to have studied level 1 with me personally. So you may have studied level 1 with another Akashic Records teacher. That's all completely okay. But what I will ask if you're coming to me and you've studied with somebody else is that you give me an overview of the information that you have covered, just so I can see if there is anything missing from what you have already covered that I cover in my level 1 class, so that you're going into level 2 on an equal footing with those students who have studied with me previously. The reason it is important to have studied level 1 before moving on to level 2 is it's important that you're able to do your own work in the Akashic Records before you start working with other people. Now, this does not mean that you have to be an expert in your own Akashic Records or that you have to get lots and lots of information. As my students will tell you, I always say in level 1 that working in your own Akashic Records is the hardest part of the training that you're ever going to do, because ego can get so involved in the process. So you do not have to be confident that you're getting lots of information. Your own personal relationship with the Akashic Records is, of course, going to develop when you are a practitioner. So the only prerequisite is that you have started to work in your own Akashic Records and that you are able to get bits of information from your Akashic Records. In level 2, one of the first things that I ask my students to do is to go into their own Akashic Records and ask how many practice sessions they need to do. You get started on your practice sessions in my level 2 after the second Zoom session. So I get you started as soon as possible with your practice sessions, because that way I'm able to support you and the rest of the class is able to support you as you're going through your practice sessions. Please do not worry if you're thinking, well, I would love to do the class, but I don't have any willing volunteers for the practice sessions. I can assure you that that's never a problem. One of the things that I do when I am teaching level 2 and level 3 is put a shout out on my Instagram and ask for willing volunteers. So lots and lots of people will put their names forward who are very willing and very able to allow you. It is, of course, really good, even if you have people who you want to practice on, whether they're existing clients or friends and family members, it's also really good to take advantage of that volunteer list, because doing readings on people that you have never met before is what's going to happen when you're an Akashic Records practitioner. The class is 6 group Zoom sessions held once every 2 weeks. So it's a 12-week time period that we are together and that I am supporting you through this process. My intention behind teaching for that amount of time and getting you started on that second session is so that by the end of our time together in level 2, that you are confident and that you are there able to provide Akashic Records readings to your existing clients, to new clients, confidently. The first and second class is very much focused on the ethics, the permissions required, the rules around being an Akashic Records practitioner. This is a sacred practice and we do want to always respect that. And you are going to be allowing the Akashic Records to work through you in the way that they want to. Some of my graduates have gone on to specialize in galactic Akashic readings. Some of my graduates have gone on to specialize in Akashic readings for pets or businesses or properties. There's many, many ways that the Akashic Records are going to work through you, and that will become apparent as we go through the class. So in the first couple of classes, it's very much about, okay, this is us being professional, ethical practitioners, and this is the process of how you go in. If you haven't studied with me previously, you will get a copy of the sacred prayer that we use. For those who have done level 1 with me, we will be using that same prayer when we are reading for others. We go into the different ways that you're going to receive information when you're providing an Akashic Records reading for other people. This can sometimes be different than how you receive information for yourself. When you first start working with your own Akashic Records, you will start to receive information predominantly in alignment to the strongest Clair sense that you have. But when you start becoming a practitioner, when you start reading for others, what will happen is you will find that the other Clair senses will start to be used. And this can be a little bit discombobulating if you have not had access to these Clairs before. So we go through that in detail before we actually get you started practicing, so that as and when that does happen for you, that you're going to be able to tune into those senses that are coming online and utilize them correctly. One of the big misconceptions that's out there is that if you can't see clairvoyantly, that you can't go into your own Akashic Records or you can't become an Akashic Records reader. And this is just not true. Clairvoyance is not everybody's strongest Clair, and clairvoyance is no better than claircognizance or clairsentience. They're just different. So if you are sat there and you are thinking, I would love to do this, but no matter how much I try to visualize, I can't see anything in my inner vision, please do not panic. Lots of people, myself included, do not have clairvoyance as their strongest Clair. And for a long time, when I was providing people with Akashic Records readings, I didn't see anything. Now, as my practice developed and as I did more and more readings for people, clairvoyance did come online and it is now one that I use. But please don't panic if you don't have access to that Clair yet. You can still receive information from the Akashic Records and you can still be an Akashic Records reader. After you have started with your practice sessions, we then all sit down together and you're going to go through your questions. There's always lots of questions and answers throughout all of my trainings. I love receiving questions, and the group sharing their experiences, their first readings that they've done for people, and being able to ask questions about stuff that's coming up for them either during the session or after the session is very important. So this is a focus the remaining classes once you start your practice sessions. I also focus in those classes on enhancing your education and your knowledge base, so that when you come across certain terms or certain concepts in your readings, that you're able to articulate these fully. Now, you're always doing a kind of dance with the Akasha in respect of the information that the records have to use in your knowledge base and providing you with new knowledge. When I first started practicing as a Akashic Records practitioner, I was not aware at that time, and this sounds hilarious now, that souls had lifetimes within different star systems. I wasn't aware that each star system was a different school, and that souls went on this journey through these different schools to evolve and grow. So what would happen is people would ask me questions about their off-earth lifetimes, and I would get bits and pieces of information through whilst I was doing my practice sessions from the Akashic Records about different star systems. And then what I would do is I would write certain words and phrases down, and then once I had finished doing the free session for the individual that I was doing it for, I would then go back into my own Akashic Records and I would do a deep dive into these topics. The following 4 sessions that we spend together over that 12-week period are very much about enhancing that knowledge base to basically ensure that you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours in your own Akashic Records doing a deeper dive into certain topics. Now, of course, you're always going to be learning as an Akashic Records practitioner. There's always going to be new information, new terms that you come across whilst you're providing those readings. And I do always suggest having a pen and paper by your side whilst you're doing those readings so that you can just make a note of any new information that does come up, so that you can explore. But my intention in level 2 is to give you as much knowledge as I can to get you started so that you have that base, so that when you're channeling that information through, certain terms, certain phrases are already there to be utilized by the Akashic Records. We go into detail about those different star systems. We spend a whole session just going through the different star systems and the different traits that people will have from those star systems. We also look at the difference between past life regression and past life information in the Akashic Records. As well, on the past life topic, we cover past life vows, and then we get into the soul and the soul's division from source and soul groups. The reason that we do quite a deep dive into this topic is so that you're able to understand the different levels of energetic connection between souls. So when soul contracts come up, you're able to distinguish what type of soul contract it is by the level of the energetic connection of those souls. We, of course, cover the different types of soul contracts that you're going to come across, and we cover a little bit about future timelines for those of you who find that when you're working with the Akashic Records that your work is very future timeline focused in respect of the future timelines based on the energetic probability of where the client is at right now. And then the final session that we do together is the Akashic Records in respect of running your business. So utilizing the Akashic Records for your own business and running a spiritual business in itself. Now, of course, running a spiritual business could be an entire class in itself. So this is very much just meant as an introduction, whether you are going to be adding the Akashic Records in as a service to your existing client base, or if you just want to get started as an Akashic Records reader. As I'm sure that you can tell by this overview, there is a lot in this class, and you will receive access to the recordings for 6 months after the class finishes. So plenty of time to take your notes, plenty of time to go back over things as you are working as an Akashic Records reader. For those of you who are in different time zones, if the time zone doesn't work, you are completely fine to catch up on the recordings of these classes at a time that works for you. Everything that you need to take the class will be uploaded into the level 2 portal, just as we currently have the level 1 portal. And all that I ever ask is that you email me your questions in between the classes, and then I cover it in the Q&A portion of the next live class. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, do I provide certificates for this class? And yes, I do provide certificates of attendance. There is no governing body for the Akashic Records practitioners. So there is no body that can accredit somebody to then give a certificate to say that you are now an Akashic Records reader. That is between you and the Akashic Records. But what I do offer is a certificate of attendance if that's requested, as I know that sometimes people need that certificate of attendance for their insurance purposes, and they have been perfectly adequate in the past for people who require those for insurance. If you have listened to this and you think that this is definitely something that you want to join me with in October, we start class on the 17th of October, 6 p.m. UK time, and you can go ahead and register over on my website. I will put the link up in the show notes. If you want to take advantage of the payment plan option where the payments are split over the 12 weeks of the class, then please just drop me an email and let me know that you want to sign up that way. You can't sign up for the payment plan option directly via the website, but I can register you manually. If you are listening to this later than October and this class has already started, don't panic. I do run level 2 classes usually twice a year for people. The next level 2 will be the summertime of 2025. I'm doing level 2 and getting you fully ready to be an Akashic Records reader before Christmas, so October to December the 19th. And then level 3, so learning how to do the healing and the clearing work in the Akashic Records, is going to be in January 2025 after I've had a break for the Christmas and the New Year period. If you have any additional questions that I haven't covered here, then please always feel free to DM me over on Instagram or send me an email. I'm always more than happy to answer any queries that you have about the training. I hope that this has been an interesting episode for those of you who are feeling the calling to become an Akashic Records practitioner, and it just gives you a feel for what it is you'll be learning in that class. And of course, if you resonate with me as a teacher, I would love to see you in that level 2 class in October. I hope you all have a beautiful, restful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you for the next episode next week.